Erectile dysfunction
Man,
is tearing some relationships up. And so much of it is attributed to red meat, processed junk foods and snacks, sugary drinks.
I had young men in their 20s coming in asking for ED medications. I'm noticing people are coming in with hypertension, having strokes, colorectal cancer, which if you look in the Black community, 40% more likely to get it, 20% more likely to die for it. And when you look at our diets are by far the most toxic diets of all of them.
So you promote a plant-based lifestyle.
We have this propensity to be in a toxic relationship with things that don't serve us.
Yeah.
The food that I was eating, even though it connected me culturally to my family, it's an abomination compared to what the original food was. The body in its original form is perfect. It's designed to heal itself. If I get a cut here, you get a cut there, you're not even gonna know you had a cut. So we know that the body is capable of regenerating and healing itself. But we only think that applies when it comes to a cut, but it also applies when we come to the inside of our bodies as well too. At some point, we gotta get to a point where we recognize our body as a spiritual temple. What would God eat?
What are some foods that we can be putting into our bodies?
Ladies, they had a song called WAP.
This is the WAP water?
This WAP water. Okay.
They at the farmer's market today, Doc. Welcome to Vaughn Powers Talks, where we don't just scratch the surface, we dive deep into the lives of some of the world's most influential change makers. I'm your host, Brandi Harvey. Y'all, we got a good one today. We talking about all things health. We gonna get your life together. Y'all gonna be throwing some stuff out today. Dr. Bobby Price is a certified plant-based nutritionist, exercise physiologist, and doctor of pharmacy. He has extensive clinical experience in the hospital setting, one-on-one patient contact in community pharmacy, and healthcare regulatory experience with the Food and Drug Administration. In his book, Vegucation Over Medication, Dr. Price exposes the myths, lies, and truths about modern foods and medicine. Dr. Price uses plant-based foods, herbal medicine, and holistic techniques to help others restore their well-being. Dr. Price has been featured on Fox 5, Medium, The Huffington Post, and Parade, just to name a few. Dr. Bobby believes that when we align our lives with nature, our bodies have an innate ability to heal. Vaughn Powers Talks welcome herbal and holistic wellness advocate, Dr. Bobby Price, to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Bobby, what's up, friend?
Man, blessed.
How you doing?
Looking forward to the conversation. I'm doing well.
Listen, this is gonna be a good one because we was already pre-gaming before we started.
And we pre-game even before this, like in the past. So it's been a minute since we've talked, so it's good to come back to this.
I mean, we got right back into the swing of things, right? I mean, you spent the very first beginning part of your career as a pharmacist.
Yeah.
And so many years of prescribing medication onto many people who look like us.
Yeah.
What did you see?
Man, you know what's funny was I started out wanting to see the truth. That was it. Like the idea was, let me help my people, because in my neighborhood and my family is riddled with cancer, is riddled with diabetes, is riddled with hypertension. And so it became so commonplace for me. I just wanted to be sort of an anchor and also a resource. And so as I'm working for the FDA and then start working in a clinical setting in a hospital, I'm just noticing that people my age are coming in. And
this is before you were even in your 40s.
No, this is in my late 20s.
Yeah.
So I'm noticing people are coming in with hypertension. I'm noticing people my age, in my late 20s at the time, coming in and having strokes.
Wow.
I'm noticing that young men are having erectile dysfunction. I'm noticing that women are having pernicious anemia to the point where they have to have blood transfusions. And so it was a wake-up call for me because I got diagnosed with high blood pressure when I was 16.
Wow.
And that was despite the fact that I was an athlete, I played football and basketball, played basketball in college, and I still had hypertension, only 7% body fat, still got hypertension. And so as I'm seeing people my age come into the hospital and have strokes and their blood pressure looks like mine, I realized that I might need to get my life together before I help somebody else get their life together.
Yeah.
And so it became just very scary for me. And that's when I went on my personal journey to kind of figure out, okay, if these people are still having strokes and heart attacks on medication, then I'm more than likely at some point to have a stroke or a heart attack on medication.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to find out what the source is, because this is only, to a certain degree, only treating the symptoms and not addressing the cause.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what led me down my rabbit hole.
I mean, you were eating a very meat-rich diet.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. A lot of animal products.
Yeah. I mean, my mom is not only the cook in the family, like she the cook in the whole neighborhood. When my mom cooks, people, you can see people ride by and they'll see people there, so they'll know that there's food, so they stop by and they're like, yeah, I got an extra plate.
Wow.
So that was my mom growing up, and I'm her oldest son, so that's how we bonded.
Okay.
So whenever I would get ready to come home from college, my mom would be like, all right, what do you want to eat?
And
of
what
course,
were you telling her?
man,
Ribs, chicken.
you know the thing, I stopped eating pork. I saw Malcolm X in 6th grade, and I stopped eating pork. But beef, chicken, and, like, yeah, everything you could think of, mac and cheese, the collard greens, like, and everything had meat in it, including the vegetables. And
I
so,
know.
so that was our routine. And so that was my lifestyle, and you could never tell me that what I was eating was contributing to me being, at that point, at 28, I not only had hypertension, I had sleep apnea.
Ooh.
I was about 50 pounds over the weight that I came into college.
Were you sleeping on a CPAP machine at this point?
So I had it, but it was so loud.
28 years old. I mean, because I know people that are 28 years old that sleep on the machine every night.
Yeah, I had the machine. So instead of using the machine, I would just sound like a bear. And so throughout the night, my girlfriend at the time would just bump me or move me.
Yeah.
Throughout the night. But yeah, just inflammation all over my body. And again, 28, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm 28 years old and I should feel like I'm feeling like I'm 60.
Wow.
And so it was just alarming and triggering at the same time. And it just made me realize that no matter how many degrees I had or what I had learned through school and through my clinical practice, something was wrong. And because it was a personal journey, that's what allowed me to say, no matter what I've been taught, I have to go outside of this and kind of figure something out.
I mean, that takes you, this journey of figuring it out, it takes you all around the world.
Yeah.
You start learning herbal medicine from shamans and ramens and everybody else, baby, all around the world.
Right.
I mean, you went to Asia, you went to Africa, you went to the Caribbean to learn how do I start to use herbs to heal the body.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be honest with you, without knowing it, that journey really began when I was like 16, when my grandmother passed away. I was literally in the room when she passed away. I was the last person to find out that my grandmother was about to pass away. And I remember walking into the room and seeing people crying, and I had never seen this in my grandmother's house because it was like the movie Soul Food every time I went to my grandmother's house. And this time when I'm walking in, instead of cousins cracking jokes and laughter and my aunt who drinks too much loud, you don't hear any of that. People just quiet and you hear sobbing. And so as I'm walking in, I realized that this is probably the last time I'm going to see my grandmother. And when I get to the bed, her bed is surrounded, and they kind of carve out some space for me. And I stand next to her bed and I see my grandmother like literally holding on for her life. And I realized that she had been holding on for me. And, initially I was like begging her, don't leave, because my grandmother was my everything. But then I realized how selfish it was. And I was just like, thank you for staying for me, grandmother. And 2 minutes later, she passed away.
And so what does your grandmother pass away from?
Colorectal cancer, which if you look in the Black community and you look at the statistics, 40% more likely to get it, 20% more likely to die for it for African Americans.
Yeah.
it is very aggressive when we get colorectal cancer. And when you look at our diets are by far the most toxic diets of all. They may taste the best, but they are by far the most toxic. And so that's sort of what led me to say, all right, the answer isn't here in the US. And that's what led me to moving to Japan. I lived there for almost 5 years, studying a group of people, the Okinawans, who live to 100, no disease.
And that's a blue zone.
That's a blue zone.
Yeah.
And they primarily eat a plant-based diet. And going to China to learn traditional Chinese medicine, going to Bali to learn about Balinese medicine, going to India to learn about yoga, meditation, and Ayurvedic medicine, spending some time in Africa, in South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, Ethiopia, learning about herbal medicine there, and then coming here back to the Caribbean, going a few places like Honduras, Dr. Sebi's village there, and a few other places. And then at that point, that's when I came back here to the U.S. and I was like, all right, I learned all of this over the course of 7 years. Let me figure out how I can share it with the people.
I mean, you write the book, Vegetation Over Medication, and you say in the book, when toxins accumulate, our health and vitality is connected to our ability to eliminate waste from our bodies. Once the body reaches its toxic threshold, disease will most certainly appear.
Absolutely.
And so you talked about the colitis, the knees and joints, rheumatoid arthritis. Sometimes I think we listen to our families and it's like, you just think you're supposed to get arthritis when you get older.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's because the knees and the joints have inflammation.
Yep.
It's because the kidneys have inflammation.
Yep. Nephritis.
Yeah.
Anything that says itis means inflammation. So
Really?
Yeah. So nephritis is in the kidneys. Nephrons that are the little filtering units in the kidneys. You have over 1 million, and when you get down to 250,000, that's when you're starting to go on dialysis. Okay, so your filtering units are essentially depleting, and that's happening because inflammation. And what does the kidney get rid of? Urine. What is urine? Uric acid. And so as you build up acid in tissues, it begins to break down those tissues. It begins to cause an irritation. It begins to cause inflammation in those tissues. But it's not just solely dependent in the kidneys. That can happen in the knees or the ankles or the wrists, and we call it arthritis. That could also happen in the gut, and we call it colitis. Doesn't matter. In the thyroid, it's called thyroiditis. Okay, so it doesn't matter where it happens, but when disease begins to form in the body, it's going to begin with an irritation. That irritation is going to cause an inflammation. That inflammation over time, like chronic time, it begins to cause the tissues to break down. And as the tissues break down, that is what breaks down organs. And that's what breaks down organ systems. So it's always dependent on where does it occur, okay? So if somebody has cardiovascular disease, it's simply because that irritation, that inflammation is happening in the cardiovascular system. And so that's what I was learning as I'm going through my journey, that I'm realizing that I didn't get this information when I was working in the hospital.
Absolutely not.
When I was working for the FDA. And this is why we're not addressing that. So when you get an inflamed tissue, you go to the doctor, they give you an anti-inflammatory. But that didn't cause the actual irritation. It's probably the food.
Yeah.
It's probably the lifestyle that actually caused the irritation. So you can get rid of the inflammation and feel better. But that's just like a check engine light. Your check engine light can be on, and you can go to your mechanic, and he could take one of the plugs off of the battery, and now it resets the car, and you don't have a check engine light on anymore.
Right.
But you still need to change your oil change. You still need to change your oil. And that's what happens in healthcare. We're only addressing the symptoms. If you have mucus, we give you Mucinex, okay? It stops the mucus from coming up, but your body was actually trying to produce the mucus to get the infection out. So instead of you getting the infection out, now the infection is growing in the body. Now you think you're better because you're not producing mucus anymore.
Yeah, and I think so often in this country, we're just putting Band-Aids over these wounds,
Yep.
right? These gaping wounds.
Yep.
We just try to keep putting a Band-Aid over it.
Yeah.
And then when we look at our community, right, the statistics are there.
Yeah.
I mean, 80% of Black women overweight or obese.
Yep.
60% of us are suffering from some form of diabetes
Yep.
or chronic disease or illness.
Right.
According to the Department of Health and Human Services, 13.4% of Black men and 12.7% of Black women have been diagnosed with diabetes.
Right.
Combined, the rate is 60% higher than whites.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it always, we have to go back to the irritation, okay? Because at the end of the day, the body in its original form is perfect. It's designed to heal itself. It's designed to regenerate itself. If I get a cut here, you get a cut there, you don't worry about it because you understand that the blood is going to clot to stop the blood bleeding. And then eventually it's going to create a scab, and that scab is eventually going to heal, and then you're not even going to know you had a cut.
Yeah.
So we know that the body is capable of regenerating and healing itself, okay? But we only think that applies when it comes to a cut. But it also applies when we come to the inside of our bodies as well, too. But the issue is that we're misaligned. We're misaligned in how we eat. We're misaligned in how we think. We're misaligned in how we drink. We're misaligned in every way that contributes to our health. We don't even get sunlight anymore. Most people spend most of their day in home.
Yeah.
They get in a car, covered. They drive to a parking deck, walk through covered parking, into a building, spend 8 hours there. They never see the sun.
Come out, it's dark.
It's dark
Or
again.
sun's going down.
With some people,
Yeah.
we're designed to
Yeah.
be in the sun. Like no plant life would exist without the sun. We can collect energy by simply putting up solar panels and be able to power an entire city. Okay, so that tells you the power of the sun. But you know, having this melanin, this tells you that you need even more sun than anybody else in the world as well, too.
Yeah.
You know, so we're just so disconnected from nature. We're so disconnected from divine law that this is why we're so sick. And then the food isn't real. Nothing is real anymore. The food isn't real. Most of it is genetically modified and lab grown. Okay, so that's not real. Our connections with each other, they're not real anymore as well, too. When you start to break down and really look at what is really real anymore, like nothing's real anymore. Like we're literally living in that matrix that the movie was talking about.
Yeah.
And that's why we're so disconnected from ourselves.
I mean, okay, so you promote a plant-based lifestyle, and I know that there are so many people out here who they're going to say, oh, no, Doc.
Yeah.
He can't be talking about me. I got to have my meat, Doc.
Right.
What do you tell those people?
Man, so that's part of the conversation that I was just having is we have this propensity to be in a toxic relationship with things that don't serve us.
Yeah.
And so my thing to people is that, first of all, understand that I come from that kind of food. So first of all, there's no judgment at all. I used to eat probably worse than most people eat.
Yeah.
But when the new information came, I made changes not based upon just on how I think and my beliefs, but I made changes in my traditions and my cultures as well too. Because what I understood is that the food that I was eating, even though it connected me culturally and traditionally to my family and friends and the people that I love, it's an abomination compared to what the original food was.
Yeah, it's not the same food.
Yeah,
Like,
and so it's not the same food in that regard. The other thing that I think is really important is that people are always looking for the next clinical trial or study to confirm what they should be eating.
ooh,
One day is keto, the next day is carnivore, the next day is vegan. And so for me, I was my own guinea pig. I reluctantly said I'm not going to eat meat for 21 days, and in 21 days I lost 17 pounds.
in 21 days,
In 21
you lost
days,
17 pounds.
just from stop eating everything that wasn't natural, including meat and nothing that's not living. Okay, so if it's not living, and it's not natural, I didn't eat it for 21 days, and in 21 days I lost 17 pounds.
I mean, Doc, I've done your detox.
Mm-hmm.
Doc has a detox. It's a herbal detox.
Yeah.
This you ain't never tasted before. I'm gonna just go ahead and say
It's
you ain't never
different.
tasted nothing like this detox.
It's
Okay.
different.
The first time I did it was a few years ago when I first met you. I did it for 30 days.
Yep.
And I tell people this all the time, this story. I was going to speak at a conference in DC.
Yeah.
I had gotten custom clothes done.
Yeah.
I started the detox. 1 week on, I had to get all the clothes taken in. All the clothes
Yeah.
were too big
Yeah.
because I had dropped so much weight just being on a raw food diet. Because I did it raw for the 30 days.
Yeah.
I did raw vegan for 30 days. I lost so much weight.
Can I explain why that happens?
Yeah.
All right. So one of the reasons why we gain so much weight is to dilute the toxicity that's in our bodies. Okay, so let me give you an example. If I were to put a pin nail of mercury in, let's say, 2 ounces of water and had you drink it, you would die. Okay? But if I were to put that in, let's say, 3 gallons of water, it dilutes the toxicity of it, of whatever that poison may be. So now your body has the opportunity to actually rid it of it. That's why a lot of people, when they say they're going to do a detox, they start drinking a lot of water, or 75% water, okay? So what your body does when you're loading it with toxicity, the toxic foods that you're eating, it starts to retain water. That's the first thing that it does. It'll retain water to dilute the toxicity, okay? Because otherwise it would accumulate in all your detox organs, your liver, your kidneys, your lymphatic system, your lungs, your digestive system, etc. Okay? So you're going to retain water. The next thing it does, because you've done it for too long, it will make you start to gain fat. All right? Most of the toxicity in our body is stored in fat. This is why it's so difficult for people to lose weight. They call it that stubborn weight that just won't lose.
Yeah.
It's because what happens is if you start to burn fat and you're not eliminating, meaning we have elimination pathways. We eliminate through our skin when we sweat, etc. We eliminate through our digestive system when we have a bowel movement. We eliminate through urine. We eliminate through breathing. We eliminate through our lymphatic system. Most of those get oversaturated, and when they get oversaturated, they don't eliminate. So that toxicity starts to back up in the body, and the body in its ingenuity is trying to figure out what to do with it. It stores it inside of fat because now it's not in the blood supply, and the blood supply goes everywhere in the body. So this is why people will not lose weight. So when you're on the detox, what happens? You start to open up elimination pathways.
Oh, baby, you gonna open up. Don't let this man sit up here and tell you gonna open up. Baby, you need to have your day planned.
Yeah.
You know where you're going, what time you're gonna get there. You need to have that thing drank by 6 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah. And what I tell people is that people just aren't used to going to the bathroom like they should. Like, if I eat 3 meals, I'm gonna have 3 bowel movements every day.
Every day.
Every day. Every time I eat, I have a bowel movement.
I love that. I love that for you.
But that is normal. But people don't think it's normal.
I keep hearing it, Doc.
Yeah, but people don't think it's normal because it's uncommon.
Yeah.
But what people are eating is making it uncommon. But if you ate healthy, you would have a bowel movement every time you ate. It's part of how you eliminate waste. When you eat food, the only thing your body wants out of it is the nutrition, the vitamins, the minerals, the trace elements, the amino acids, the healthy fats. All of the other stuff is useless. Okay? I won't say useless because fiber is healthy for the gut. It feeds the gut bacteria. But the rest can go. So once the body gets the nutrients out, it's like, all right, get rid of this other stuff.
You need to get rid of it.
Because otherwise it becomes waste.
Yeah.
And as fecal matter starts to accumulate, it will start to rot and fester and create toxins in the body.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really important to understand that when you're on the detox, a lot of people just aren't used to going to the bathroom that much. But like for me, I don't feel anything on the detox because I'm always going to the bathroom. If I eat 5 times a day, I'm going to have 4 or 5 bowel movements. And then think about this.
It's more.
Because part of it is getting rid of parasites and yeast.
I mean, and that's what the detox is. One of the T's is a parasite cleanse. The other one is a candida cleanse.
Yeah. So one of them, the thing is that parasites and yeast are controlling your taste buds.
Yeah.
They have hijacked your taste bud.
Yeah.
It's why you love sugar, fat, salty, creamy.
Yeah.
It's not you. So whenever you get ready to say, I'm not eating that no more, but you cannot stop doing it, it's because the parasites and the yeast have taken over. And all you got to do is get a tongue scraper, start scraping your tongue in the morning, and if it's white, it'll tell you you're full of yeast. Okay? If you clench your teeth at night when you sleep, grind your teeth at night, you got parasites. If you got an itchy anus at night, you got parasites. If you have brain fog, all of these things are telling you you have parasites. But the issue is that there's nothing, when you go to your doctor and you complain about these things, the irritable bowel syndrome, that's parasites.
Absolutely.
A large percentage of diabetes is parasites too, because they get inside of the pancreas, lay all of these eggs, and your pancreas is what releases insulin to control your blood sugar. What does parasites and yeast love? Sugar. So now your blood sugar levels stay high for the parasites and the yeast. So it's just really important to understand that as we unravel all of these things, these critters that are in your body, and this is also why people have issues sleeping, because like they say, the freaks come out at night. Like the parasites and the yeast wake up at night. This is why people are waking up at night, having problems sleeping, having nightmares, etc. All of these things are contributed to parasites.
Nightmares are contributed to parasites?
Yeah, if you're having consistent nightmares, yeah, it can be contributed to parasites as well, too.
Well, thank God I don't have nightmares. But we were talking about this off camera before we started. Part of why I gave up alcohol was because I could not sleep.
Yeah.
I was up and down the whole night, stomach flip-flopping and turning and doing jumping jacks.
Yep.
And I can't get a good night's sleep.
Throws your circadian rhythm off.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing is that, as I was telling you earlier, there were studies that came out that said that a glass of alcohol or a glass of wine is actually heart healthy for you. But of course, like, you have to always follow the money when it comes to a study. And most of the studies that were conducted were funded and supported by the alcohol industry. And the independent studies, they show that not only is alcohol point blank a toxin for the body, that's why they say you're intoxicated.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not only a brain poison, but it's a liver poison. It's a poison for the overall body. But in those independent studies, it showed that alcohol increased all causes of mortality. So if you had diabetes, it increased the risk of you dying from diabetes. If you had cardiovascular disease, it increased your risk from dying for cardiovascular disease. If cancer, increase your risk, it increases the risk for all causes of mortality. And so, as I was telling you, I stopped drinking in 2015. It had nothing to do with me understanding this knowledge, because I didn't have it then. But what it was is, if I can't go out and enjoy myself without having to put something in my hand to feel socially comfortable and not socially awkward, if I have to loosen myself up by intoxicating myself, for me, that says something to me and about me.
Yeah.
If I have to drink alcohol to be able to go to sleep, it's telling me that something is off.
Yeah.
Could be parasites. And so for me, it came from that standpoint. But in any case, it's just harmful to the body.
You said something, right? You said that if I couldn't have a good time and I couldn't go out and be myself without having something in my hand.
Yeah.
There are so many people who will listen to this like, I can't go have no plant-based diet.
Yeah.
Because where I'm going to go to eat, how I'm going to have fun, how I'm going to go to the holiday,
yeah,
how I'm going to show up to the party, how I'm going to come to the cookout.
Yeah.
And I can't get no ribs and no chicken on that grill.
Right. Man, I'm going to tell you something. We're also in an age of a lack of self-love and self-care. And I believe that when you cannot make decisions that you know that this is leading to not only, the decline in my health, and I can see it in my family, generationally. I can see the diabetes. I can see the strokes. I can see the cancer. And I can see what's consistent in my family is that we all eat the same way, okay? It's not just genes, because when you look at cancer, only 5% of cancers come from genes. And it's not breast cancer, it's not prostate cancer, it's not colorectal. None of those are associated primarily with genes. It's from our lifestyle. It's from the food that we're eating. And so what I always tell people, you need to dig deeper when it comes to self-destructive and self-sabotaging behavior. And that's what I looked in within myself and said, okay, if I'm eating food that I know as a scientist, as a clinician, that I know is destructive to me, then what did they say about me? What's going on inside of me? What kind of unresolved traumas have I not healed? You know, what kind of things are being promoted in my brain and my programming that is telling me it's okay to harm yourself?
Oh, Doc, I told you before when we were talking, I had to ask myself that question with alcohol.
Yeah.
I was like, the next day after that last drink, I said, how, Brandi, can you say you love yourself if you keep showing up doing this type of shit to yourself?
Right.
Okay, right? Like, and I think that so many people, we don't think about it, right? Because we've been so programmed, we've been so conditioned to eat a certain way, to think a certain way, to believe a certain way.
Yeah.
And so that reprogramming comes with a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And, you know, I wrote another book called, you know, that, you know, a lot of people don't know about, but in my opinion, I think is probably the most important book that people have to start with. It's called Life is My Guru. And the whole premise of the book is that life is literally teaching you as a spiritual form lessons. And quite often what happens is all of that unresolved trauma that we're not, you know, looking at, that we swept under the rug, that we disowned and disconnected ourselves from, a lot of times what we do is we self-sabotage because of trauma that happened when we was 8 years old.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times what we don't understand is that, you know, that hurt that somebody did to you, now you're perpetrating to yourself. And so for me, it just became a very important point for me to kind of get to a space where I could see me. I could see the parts of me that hurt. And most of it was a 12-year-old boy. It wasn't a grown man. The grown man had mastered all of his, you know, life experiences, but I didn't correct what happened when I was 12 years old. And so it's just really important for people to understand that if you have self-sabotaging behaviors, it doesn't matter if it's your addiction to ice cream or your addiction to alcohol or whatever it may be, but you know that this is not good for you, then it's time to kind of do some digging. And I'll tell people, like, healing isn't easy.
No.
You know, a lot of people have mastered the conversation and the linguistics and the articulation of healing. So they understand words like being what a narcissist is. They understand, you know, all of these key words that say, I've done therapy.
Yeah.
But people have done therapy, but they haven't become the therapy. They haven't become the healing. And so a lot of people believe that they can go around healing. They believe that they can go over healing or under it, but you can't. You have to go through healing. And when you go through healing, it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, to go back and look at trauma it does not feel good. You have to have conversations with yourself and other people that are very uncomfortable. You know, when you're going through real healing, not treatment, okay? 'Cause treatment is turning off symptoms. But when you go through real healing, you got to go through the mucus coming up. You got to go through all those bowel movements that you didn't have. You eat 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. That's 21 meals in a week times 52. Okay? We're talking like 5,000 meals in a year.
Yeah.
Okay? But you only had...
one bowel movement a week.
Yeah. A lot of people having 3 bowel movements in a week. Where are the other 4,000 meals?
Ooh, like, they are stuck in there, trapped in a closet.
Full of poo. So my thing is to people is when you're going through healing, just know that the sign and symptom that you're actually healing is the discomfort. You know, like it's just like forgiveness.
Yeah.
You know, it's uncomfortable.
Well, Doc, I tell people all the time, you know, when they say people are full of shit, you know, it's usually because they are really full of shit.
They're literally full of shit. So in that case, it's like when somebody tells me, well, my intuition says, how can your intuition be correct when you're full of shit?
Ooh!
Especially when where does your intuition come from?
Your gut.
Your gut.
So if you ain't had more than 21 bowel movements this week, baby, we can't even trust it. We can't trust you.
But you gotta have that conversation with yourself, because that's a form of toxicity too. When you leave waste in the gut,
Yeah.
This is why, in my opinion, black and brown people lead in the category of colorectal cancer. This is why Chadwick Boseman
Yeah.
died at 43 of colorectal cancer. It's because we don't understand, first of all, what we're eating, but also the trauma. The trauma is a part of that too. So it's just really important for us to get in a space where we go back to the type of healing, not only that, our grandmother, but our ancestors only knew.
Yeah.
This is not healing in what we in now. Like this, what we call healthcare is the third leading cause of death in America.
Absolutely.
So if you're leaning on that, you're leaning on the third leading cause of death to be your savior when it comes to your health. If that's the reason why you're eating the foods that you're eating, you're drinking the drink that you're drinking, and you're dependent on that to save you from cancer, to save you from a stroke, to save you from a heart attack, to save you from an autoimmune condition, you should know that the leading cause of bankruptcy is medical debt.
The leading cause of bankruptcy is medical debt.
It's medical debt.
Wow.
So, what I tell people is that, because a lot of times what people will say about a plant-based diet, oh, it's more expensive.
It's really not.
It's not.
It's more expensive to buy the meat.
Well, it's more expensive to have diabetes.
Oh, listen.
It's more expensive to get a stent or a bypass surgery.
Yeah.
It's more expensive to get a cancer diagnosis. It's far more expensive. And not only that, like, at some point, we got to get to a point where we recognize our body as a spiritual temple.
Yeah.
And once we get to a point where we understand that this is a spiritual temple, it's a temple for my spirit. I was meant to come here and have a spiritual experience as a human being. Okay? Not necessarily come here as a human being. We didn't come here as a human being.
Yeah.
We came here as a spirit. So with that being said, that if this is my vehicle for my human experience, I have to treat this like a spiritual experience. I have to see it from a divine eye and stop looking at it like a human.
Yeah.
Because we're here to see it from a divine space. So what would God do in this situation? What would God eat? Would God eat something dead, or would God eat something alive?
Yeah.
If God saw that he was punishing himself, taking away his life, spoon and fork by fork, what would he do? Like, when we start to look at it from that perspective, now you change how you see you. Now when you hear, I was made in his likeness and image, now you understand.
Yeah.
You understand? And so we have to get to that point, because we just don't understand. This is why the world is so crazy right now. We're so disconnected from ourselves. This is why it's so easy for us to look on TV and see another person murdered and then flip.
We just go about our day.
Go right about our day.
We go back scrolling, right? We see it all the time.
Yeah, so we're just totally disconnected. And I believe that our whole purpose here is to become evolved. It's for us to become the highest versions of ourselves.
We'll talk about the highest version, and we talk about this connection. I need you to help bring some relationships back together, Doc.
Okay.
This is how we going to bring some relationships back together. Because erectile dysfunction,
man,
is tearing some relationships up.
Indeed.
And so much of it is attributed to highly processed meats, red meat, processed junk foods and snacks, sugary drinks. Erectile dysfunction, especially in younger men, is an early sign of cardiovascular disease and may decrease quality of life.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so, man, I'll tell you. So let me just keep it all the way real. I remember in my 20s when I started my journey, I did not know that I had an issue in the bedroom. It wasn't until I went plant-based, and after 3 months, I lost a significant amount of weight initially. So I lost like 50 pounds total in about 60 days, all right? And I remember the girl that I was dating at the time, she hated the weight loss, because to her, like, I just looked like a football player with the 50 pounds on. And then off, it looked like I aged backwards like 20 years.
Yeah, now you was like, you all right, you know, you
Yeah,
will, you
you
on
know how
something?
exactly. You know how black families are. They like, you sick?
You sick? You want something? He take drugs now, girl. You know, we got to pray for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I remember her saying, I asked her because for me, I was like, damn, I got abs again. Like, it was amazing. So I was like, what do you think about the weight loss? I just made me ask her, and she was like, I don't like it. But she was like,
This is the same girlfriend that was nudging you because you sounded like a bear at night, too.
Yeah. And she was like, I don't like the weight loss. She was like, it make you look so young when you're with me. And I just, what she was really trying to say is, I don't feel like you can protect me now. But she was like, but in the bedroom, she was like, I didn't know it could get better like this. And I was like, well, what do you mean? How was it before? And she was like, well, that's over. We ain't got to talk about that.
She said, I don't want to hurt your feelings, baby.
Yeah, so like what I understood from that was I was at the beginning stages of ED.
Okay, because you weren't able to get it up, or you just weren't multiple
getting
times?
it up wasn't a problem. Okay.
Stamina.
Stamina wasn't a problem.
What was the problem, though?
Being fully erect.
Oh, it was kind of like, it's kind of here, but kind of not.
Yeah, because what I like when I talk to men, most men don't know what a fully erect penis is. But if you remember back to when you was a little boy and you got your first erection, your penis came up like this.
Yeah.
It almost pointed at you, okay? So I always tell men that's how you measure how healthy your erection is. If it's up like this, you super healthy. If it's down like this, okay, we got some little work to do. If it's at 90 degrees, still good, but you're heading in the wrong direction. And once you're erected, but your penis is pointing down, okay, but not up, now you know you're at the stage where you need to do something about it.
This is why I wanted to have this conversation with you. Because I told you before, it's one thing when you hear female physicians and doctors talk about men and erectile dysfunction. But it's another thing when you hear it from a man who has the working parts to let other men know what life can really be like.
Yeah, for sure.
If they change their diet too.
Yeah, even waking up with a morning erection is normal for a man. Like that's a sign of health.
Sign of good health.
As well too. And so what men don't understand about an erection is it's all about blood flow. This is why it's totally connected to cardiovascular disease. When your blood flow begins to suffer, the first place it suffers for a man is going to be in their erection. Okay? So that's a sign of a lack of nitric oxide. Okay? Nitric oxide is what causes the blood vessels to dilate and get bigger. As they dilate, they allow more blood flow to come through. Okay? But as you're eating foods that are very inflammatory, it causes those blood vessels to constrict. Now it's much more difficult to get blood flow into that area. Okay.
So that's the sugary processed foods, the drinks, that's the alcohol, that's the processed meats, that's the red meat, that's all of those things.
That's all of those things because they are inflammatory. You eat foods that inflame the body, they're going to cause the blood vessels to get tight. Now think about plumbing because guys understand this perfectly. If you have a very cold day and some of the water inside of your plumbing begins to freeze, and then you turn the water on to get water to your faucet, it's going to create so much pressure because the ice is in there, okay? And what does water do when it freezes? It expands, okay? Creating more pressure, making it more difficult for blood to flow. So this is why men have to understand if you're eating an inflammatory diet, at some point, especially, going into your 30s now, which it used to be going into your 50s and your 60s.
Yeah.
But now it's going into your 30s, okay? But even me, I remember when I was working in a hospital, I had young men in their 20s coming in asking for ED medications because they had real issues. So it's starting as early in the 20s now. But that's not just a sign that you're going to have a problem in the bedroom. It's also a sign that you're going to have a problem with your heart health as well, too.
I mean, when we look at the food, what are some foods that we can be putting into our bodies that will bring down the inflammation?
So yeah, there's a few foods that could be helpful for somebody who's suffering with ED. The first thing you want to do is get the inflammation out. All right, because the inflammation is causing the constriction. That's what's slowing down the blood flow. And if your blood flow is being sort of blocked to your heart and your kidneys, the last thing your body cares about is your penis. Okay, so that just is what it is. Your body gonna make some CEO decisions.
Yeah,
Okay,
and your wood is not the part of
the
the
wood
disease.
ain't all good. So, the first thing you want to do is get some anti-inflammatory foods in your diet. That's gonna be, your green leafy vegetables. Stay away from things like spinach and kale because they have oxalates in it. Go more towards arugula, dandelion leaf.
Wait, stay away from kale?
I would say stay away from kale and spinach because they have oxalates in it. Oxalate is oxalic acid. And if you're trying to get rid of inflammation, it may not be good for a person who's trying to get rid of inflammation.
That is so good to
So
know.
then switch over to more of the green leafy vegetables like arugula and dandelion leaf because they're bitter, but they're also more alkalizing to the body. And anything that's alkalizing to the body is anti-inflammatory. So get your green juice on, get your green smoothie on, okay? That's going to be important. Get some antioxidants in the body because that's going to fight off not only the inflammation but also free radicals in the body as well too. That's going to be things like fruit, especially your tropical exotic fruits, okay? So get some, pomegranate in there. That's good for nitric oxide that dilates the blood vessels. Get some soursop if you can find it in there as well too. That'll be helpful as well too. But get your fruits on, get your berries on, all right, antioxidants. And try to get a range of colors, especially the blues and the purples because they have anthocyanin, which is very anti-inflammatory. All
So
right?
that's the blueberries, that's the dark seeded grapes, the
yeah.
blackberries.
Yes.
All of those are going to be really good for that.
So get those going. And then I would say get some healthy fats in because healthy fats are going to have omega-3s. So my healthy fats are going to be things like sea moss, okay, to get my omega-3s. I get that from seaweed and dulse. I also get it from avocado, a really great sort of source as well too. Other nuts and seeds, walnuts, Brazil nuts, um, just getting some hemp seed as well too. So those are my choice that I go to as well too. And then I didn't mention before, but one of the best sort of fruits that you could have is watermelon, okay? Now, Beyonce did a song about watermelon. It's about a whole nother thing, okay? But what men don't know about watermelon being good for them is that, especially the rind of the watermelon, that little white part, and make sure you get seeded. That white part, eat that part too, because that's the part that has citrulline and arginine in it.
Now, that was the part when we was growing up as kids. Don't eat that part. It's going to make your stomach hurt.
Nah, that's the good part. That's where the citrulline and the arginine is that causes the blood vessels to dilate, okay? So that's, women, if you love your man, get your man some watermelon juice.
Baby, they at the farmer's market today, Doc. Okay, I'm going to see them over there.
And for the ladies, they could do okra water.
The okra, okra is such a staple in my diet.
Man,
it is
okra water.
I have tried the okra water. Now, it's a little...
Let me tell you something.
It's a slippery slope.
Ladies.
It's slippery.
They had a song called WAP.
Okay. This is the WAP water?
This WAP water. Okay. So men, get your woman
some okra.
Some okra water. Okay. So
listen.
He gonna be good in the bedroom, and you definitely gonna be good in the bedroom.
You gotta go get your watermelon and your WAP water.
The
okra.
Go.
The okra water.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So women should be drinking okra water.
Men can too because it helps as well with men.
I see you on your social.
Yeah.
And Doc said he gonna get it on all angles. He said he gonna have it.
Let me tell you something. Don't play in the bedroom with your woman.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the things that you want to have a healthy relationship. There's two primary reasons why a lot of relationships fall apart. Finances.
Sex and money.
And sex. Okay, so Work on your money. You can always have the bedroom together, though.
Because listen, some folks who ain't got no money,
Okay.
they got the bedroom
They
together.
winning.
Some of us have to operate our strong suits.
They got some situationships that's happening just based on keeping the bedroom together.
Listen, so they got a place to live.
Yeah, man. So,
listen.
like, there's no reason why you can't have a fruitful, pun intended, healthy sexual relationship with your partner. Like, that's where another place to have fun and enjoy each other and experience each other. Also in a spiritual way as well, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before you get out of here, because this is one of the things that, two things, right? When we talk about fruit. One, seeded fruit.
Yep.
Because you and I were talking about seeded grapes.
Yeah.
And if you can find the seeded grapes, you eat the seeded grapes.
Right.
But not the cotton candy grapes.
Because
I've seen people doing the reels, baby, and they say, these my favorite grapes. I got the cotton candy grapes. And I'm like, oh, Lord.
Man, I'm going to tell you, like, it's difficult for me to go in the grocery store because it's like I started seeing stuff that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up, my dad is from Miami, so in the summers, like, I remember, like, going to watermelon farms and throwing watermelons during the summer. And I could tell you, I never saw a watermelon without a seed.
Yeah.
So, like, the first time I saw a watermelon without a seed, I was like, whoa.
What is this?
What's wrong with this one? I went back to the store, took that one back, and I was like, yo, something's wrong with the watermelon. It didn't have no seeds in it. I was like, oh, no, it's seedless. I was like, how? And they couldn't explain to me how. And so, like, people have to understand we come from a seed. Like, every human came from a seed. That's semen. Humans don't exist without a seed.
Yeah.
Okay? Life comes from a seed. Okay? You can't have food. Like they say in Genesis 1:29, I have given you every fruit-bearing seed. Okay? That was our food in the garden. That's all we needed.
Yeah.
Okay? So to go from a divine space of not only I give you this seed, I give you this seed one time, and it's going to produce for you for a lifetime and generations. Your grandchildren will have this mango, okay, and this tree that I have in the backyard. And if an animal comes along and takes one of those mangoes and takes it 2 doors down and it drops into the ground, I will create another tree for you. That's divinity working for us.
Yeah.
So we have to understand what a seed is. That's God giving us abundance. That's God giving, like when you have your children from a seed, now your children can have children. And now their children can have children. It's the same process with food. It's no different. So that's the source and the sign of life that people just don't understand. But this is also part of the abomination and the disconnection that they've given us very slowly over time. So first the seeds were there, but they were white seeds in a watermelon. And you saw it and you said, well, I mean, it's still seeds. And then it showed up with no seeds, and you were like, well, it's convenient. Okay? That's how they work us with everything.
Yeah.
But that's why I always say, like, for me, like, it's very difficult for me to go to the grocery store because I'm looking around and I'm seeing the cotton candy grapes and,
You said pink
pineapple.
Pink pineapples.
I'm like, this is wild work.
I saw it online. I said, how did they get the pineapple pink?
It's genetically modified.
Yeah. What did they put in it?
100% genetically modified.
Yeah.
So when you take something, I'll give you a for instance. Tomato. The reason why tomatoes can grow in the winter now, because again, everything isn't just like on my farm, everything is not only seeded, it's seasonal.
It's seasonal.
We have seasons in life. Different things grow during different seasons because during the winter season, you're supposed to have things that are growing that are good for the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
During the summer season, you have things that are growing that are fruitful and in water. So that's how you have a lot of melons that grow in the summer because now it's hydrating you because it's hot. Everything makes sense, okay? But when you think about how they've manipulated something like a tomato, all right, the reason why it can grow in the winter now instead of being something that grows in the summer is because now they've genetically modified it. And they splice a tomato with an Arctic flounder, which is a fish that lives in the Arctic. So
Wait,
now
so what?
now that tomato can survive during the winter because it has the genes of an Arctic flounder fish that can survive in frigid temperatures in the water.
This is the first time I'm ever hearing this.
Yeah, but that this is the abomination that's happening with the food. This is why I'm telling you, this is the matrix. Nothing is real anymore. The food isn't real anymore. Most This conversation is real, but most of our conversations aren't real anymore. The news isn't real anymore. Nothing is real. People helping people isn't real anymore. Nothing's real anymore. The water's tainted, the air's polluted. They're trying to use technology to block out the sun.
Yeah.
The drugs don't heal anything. Nothing is real. Nothing is what it's supposed to be. So it's up to us to get conscious and wake up and stop seeing with these two eyes, because these two eyes get tricked, and start looking with this eye. Start looking with our divine eye.
Well, then that's getting calcified because all the damn fluoride in the water.
All the fluoride in the water. But that's also part of the waking up.
Yeah.
When we begin to wake up and realize the fluoride is calcifying our pineal gland,
Yeah.
and that pineal gland is actually useful, just like every other thing in our bodies. You know, like when you remove your gallbladder, you needed that. Okay? When you remove your appendix, you needed that. When you go to your dentist and get a root canal, and they remove the root and the nerve and the blood supply to that tooth is dead. It looks like it's still alive, but it is dead. And when an infection occurs in that tooth, it means that no immunity could get to that tooth anymore because they removed the blood vessels.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up because, of course, you hear a lot of conversation around and the correlation between breast cancer, root canals.
Yeah.
And then when people get their wisdom teeth extracted.
Yep.
Around the disease that is triggered because you get your wisdom teeth
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to understand, like I just mentioned.
I'm like the only person with me and my sister are like the only people with their wisdom teeth.
You cannot leave dead tissue in the body. This is why I'm saying you can't eat dead flesh. This is what, when you leave dead tissue in the body, it begins to necrotize and then it turns into gangrene. Okay? And then it will kill all of you. This is why when diabetics, their blood is so thick that blood can't flow to that area anymore. And then it becomes infected, and because blood can't flow there, that means that your immunity can't get there anymore.
They have to cut
the tissue begins to die. All right? They have to cut it off. Because if you don't cut it off, it will infect and kill all of you. All right? So it's no different when you get a root canal. All right? It's important that you understand that that tooth is dead, and that most of the time you got a root canal is because of an infection was there. But because that tooth is dead, now it gives rise to infection in the mouth. So a lot of times if you get a root canal on your right side and then you find breast cancer in your right breast, it makes sense, okay? We've already saw the studies that are connecting a lot of infections in the mouth to cardiovascular disease, but now we're starting to see it with breast cancer as well, too.
There are going to be so many people who say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. I don't even believe that. I can't get with that.
Yeah.
I got breast cancer because it run in my family.
Yeah.
I got breast cancer because I got cancer because my grandmama, and I got hypertension because my grandmother. What do you say about that?
I think it's a cop-out. I think it's people willing to compromise themselves because it's easier when your doctor tells you something simple. And I'll tell you, the number one cause of death for cardiologists is heart disease.
Mm.
That's the number one cause of death for somebody who treats heart disease, is heart disease. And this is coming from somebody who's a clinician. So I'm telling you, we don't know what we're talking about when it comes to healing. When it comes to treatment, we know exactly what we're talking about. But when it comes to actual healing and health, we know nothing about it. We only know about treating symptoms. So the idea that something can be a conspiracy, well, first of all, look at the new studies that are coming out. They've done many studies on, let me give you, for instance, they've done many studies on a drug called ivermectin. Now, most people, when they hear ivermectin, they think of a dewormer for their pet or a horse. All right?
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of it. Don't have
Yeah.
a pet though.
Well, you've heard of dewormers for
Oh,
dogs.
dewormers. Yeah.
Deworming is parasites.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The number one cause of death for dogs, you know what it is?
It's not parasites, right?
Cancer.
The number one cause of death in dogs is cancer.
Cancer. And what do they constantly do when you go to a vet? Putting them on dewormers, parasite medications. Okay? So what I'm telling people is that they're never going to tell you that. The cancer industry is a billion-dollar industry. They load you up with chemo, they load you up with radiation, they give you mammograms, they do surgeries and cut things out of you. Okay, but all of the new information is showing you, not only when you look at parasites over here and cancer over here, their metabolism is the same. Okay, and let me explain what I mean by that. When you look at a healthy cell, we metabolize using glucose, using cellular respiration, meaning we need oxygen, okay, to metabolize and make energy. All right, when you look at cancer, cancer doesn't use that mechanism. That's how you can distinguish between a cancer cell and a healthy cell. A cancerous cell uses fermentation. Okay, when something is fermenting, what is it doing? In many cases, it's dying. It's creating. It's rotting.
Yeah.
Okay, so cancer uses fermentation. It does not use what a healthy cell uses. It also uses a lot of glutamate, okay, which is an amino acid. And guess what else uses that same metabolic pathway of glutamate? Parasites. They cannot function without it. All right, so that's why they've done the studies with ivermectin in a lot of dogs, a lot of horses, but also now humans now, and they're showing you that when you put somebody who has cancer on ivermectin, it starts to kill off the cancer. So is the cancer, or is it cancer and parasites, or is it just parasites?
Wow. But they can get on a detox and maybe start clearing these parasites out.
And that's why part of what my detox does is so important to get rid of parasites, because most people have them. If you eat sushi, if you eat salmon, okay, if you consume a lot of meat, okay, because all you got to do is next time you get that pork chop and you bring it home, set it out, pour some Coca-Cola on it, pour some acid, which is what Coca-Cola is, and you will see all of these parasites come out of it. Okay, now in your mind, you're thinking, well, I cook it, so I kill it.
No, they ball up and then they expand out.
Not only that, heat doesn't kill the eggs that they lay. So the eggs that are in the meat, you might have killed some of the parasites, but you didn't kill the eggs. So when they go in your body, you're still getting parasites. So this is why.
And then they're hatching in your pancreas.
Yeah, they're hatching in your gut, and then they're just going to every part of the body. I mean, I had somebody I was working with, had cancer in the neck, and I created this my detox, and then a tincture that on that side of their neck, they would go home, and every night they would just lean to the left and just hold it in their mouth for like 5 minutes so it can soak into the tissues. Man, 10 days later, he felt something wiggling in the side of his jaw. Reached in, and it was a parasite.
Oh, my God. Oh,
So
see, I'm too visual.
Yeah, but
Jesus.
The point I'm trying to make is that it's just important for us to know that would have never been addressed in the hospital.
Yeah.
That would have never got addressed in the hospital because we don't look for toxins. We don't look for parasites. We don't even look for heavy metals. Even though we know heavy metals are in vaccines, we know heavy metals are in our deodorant, we know heavy metals are in rice, okay? We know that heavy metals are all over the place. They're in our water. That
heavy metals are in rice.
Yeah, arsenic is found in rice.
White rice.
Yeah.
Brown rice.
Both.
All rice.
Actually, brown rice has more heavy metals in it because it has the hole on it, so it absorbs more.
But you suggest eating wild rice. You talk about that in your...
Well, the heavy metals are coming from traditional farms here in America, whereas wild rice typically isn't grown here.
Yeah.
And I also suggest that people don't eat a lot of grains as well, too. You know, so like my thing is that it's just really important for people to understand that the way that we see health, the goggles in which we see health, is really sick care. It's not health care.
Yeah.
And so the way that when I say we, I'm saying us as healthcare professionals, but I'm also saying us as patients too. Both of us are seeing health through sickness, pathology. We can't see it through healing. And so it's important for us to get to a space where we could actually see it through a healing eye. How do I heal from this? Meaning, how do I not only manipulate my biochemistry, because that's treatment, but how do I correct my biochemistry?
Yeah.
Because that's what it takes to heal. You have to correct biochemistry. You have to correct your thinking. You have to correct, tissue inflammation. You have to correct a lot of things. But treatment isn't doing that. It's only manipulating. Okay? It's only turning off symptoms. And like I said before, when you turn off the check engine light, you still need an oil change. And if you go a long enough time without getting that oil change, not only are you going to have issues with your oil, now you're going to have to replace the entire engine.
Whew, well, Dr. Bobby, we're gonna have to do the reset. We're gonna have to do the detox on the show. All the bought in powers folks, we gonna get on the detox, get these parasites. As we close out, Doc, one word you are committed to in this season of your life.
Alignment. I'm aligning myself back with God. I'm aligning myself back with the divine parts of myself. I'm aligning myself with my purpose and my mission, and aligning myself with health and healing, and trying to be an example with that alignment. So everything is about alignment now. You know, none of me, all of God.
Yeah. None of me, all of God. Thank you, Dr. Bobby. This was a good one. Vaughn and Power Talks. Be sure to share this with somebody who needs to be more aligned in this season. Less of you and more God. I'm your girl, Brandi Harvey. Until next time, eat well, give a damn, move your body every single day. Peace.